What's up, Internet? It's Brandon here, bringing you episode 9 of Free2Play Weekly. As always, I'm bringing you the latest free-to-play games released on Steam, and we've got about 20 games, maybe a little more than 20 games today to review. Last week was our first week doing the Spotlight. It ended up being a live stream from 10 to 11 p.m. on Thursday night. I think I'm going to keep that model. I enjoy the interactivity. I used to do Twitch stuff, so I have a little bit of experience doing live streams, so I think I'm going to keep that where we'll vote on what game we want me to play, and then I'll play it live on stream. People can tune in, ask questions, watch the playback later if the timing doesn't work out for you, and that's kind of the model we'll go forward. So we'll have the Monday pre-recorded, everything released in the past week, the Thursday spotlight based on the game voted on by the community, and that'll be kind of our cadence going forward. That having been said, let's dive right on into this week's episode. The recommended game for this week is End Transmission. It is a pretty interesting concept for a game where you play a teenage girl at the end of the world. You know the world's ending, you don't know when, but you know it's coming. And she's posted up in this radio tower broadcasting music for the town because the people who were broadcasting music went home to their families for their final days, and she wanted to keep the music alive, so she's in the tower running music. And when you're playing music, you're actually building up 3 attributes for the areas you're broadcasting to. Those attributes are jolliness, resolve, and tranquility. And so you're trying to get a good balance of those across the areas you're broadcasting to via some plugs that you can manipulate to play different parts of the tracks for the music that you're playing. You can also take calls from people, so you'll see like that there are incoming calls, and you can plug in the frequency to answer the call that's coming in, and then you'll get some story unlocks and sometimes some quests that way. And then there's also PSAs that you can do where you target a specific feeling. So if you want to boost the resolve across the board, you can do a PSA on the part of resolve to try to help boost that up across the areas you're broadcasting to. There's also pigeon, part seagull, I think, that you're friends with, who you can send out to collect things for quests. And it's an interesting way to allow you to interact with this whole town without leaving the radio tower. When you're done with your day, you can go upstairs and sleep, and it'll start the next day. The next day doesn't start until you put your headset on. I accidentally skipped the big paragraph about it and was just walking around like, man, nothing to do here, huh? But I went back and watched my own video to read it to see what I missed, and it was that once you put your headset on, it'll start the next day. So when you wake up, you can walk around, and you don't have to start the next day right away, but once you put your headset on, the next day will start. And yeah, so it was a cool game. I don't know how long it is. I didn't get that far in my playthrough, but they say there's they don't know how many days are left, so I assume it's sub a week. So it's probably like 6 or 7 days of gameplay. So it's something that I'll probably come back to. I'll put it in the list for the live spotlight on Thursday as well as an option. But it was a really good game. I enjoyed it a lot, and I think you may too. There Was Something in That Room is a pretty short game where you move from room to room debugging computer systems. And as you debug them, there's certain tasks you have to complete. You either have to find something missing in the code, or you have to find the letter that's, different than all the other letters. There's a couple other things. Sometimes the computer's just fine and like good to go. And you're like, okay, cool, next room. While you're doing this, you hear something else moving around in the rooms next to you. My first playthrough, there were a couple times I saw like eyes in a doorway, like, hey, I'm over here. And I was like, no, I'm not going to go that way. And I would loop around and avoid it. And that was, I guess, a successful tactic, because I was able to complete the first playthrough without encountering the something that was in that room. And so I requeued just so I could make sure I encounter it and get my nice jump scare in. So I've got that right here. Okay, cool. So now you can see how that goes. But yeah, it's a pretty short game, pretty small game, but it's, an interesting mechanic of trying to get around to all 9 rooms and debug each computer before encountering whatever that thing was. Strange Pong is a amplified version of its namesake. It starts off with pretty standard Pong, bounce ball back and forth, don't let it get past you. And then as you advance through the levels, new components are added. And these components spawn within the middle of the map. And so sometimes the ball will just happen to bounce into them and they each do different things. So some that I remember is there's one that like spins around and launches the ball in a random direction. So sometimes you'll like bounce it into that and it'll send it right back at you. And it's like, well, no. And then there's another one that changes the music, which, okay, like it's cool. It's kind of annoying sometimes, but it's cool like that's a mechanic in there. There were a couple others. One was like you die if you touch it. I didn't really like that one that much because you couldn't do anything about it, right? Like if it's going to hit you and you die, or if you don't let it hit you and it just scores, you lose that point either way. So it felt very there's nothing you can do to counter it, and maybe there are things later that you can get, like a shield or something to prevent just getting yeeted whenever the ball hits that death token, but that was something that maybe introducing the shield first would have made it not feel as aggressive when it did spawn. But it's a cool concept. You do also gain like a second bumper and some other stuff as you advance. So there's a number of different perks you can get. And as you defeat them, you unlock them to set up for your own custom game modes. So there's the ability to create a game mode using only the things that you want to use. Which lets you kind of build the map in the way that you would enjoy the most. So overall, a nice little Pong game. I thought it was cool, but like I said, some of the buffs are a little overpowered. Arcane Rush has a playstyle similar to Hearthstone Battlegrounds, where you buy units and place them, and then they auto battle against your opponent's units. The upgrade system for your dealer in this game makes it that runs are a little more unique later in the game when you've unlocked new races. So like most of the plays I played, I had orcs and that was all I had. I've played this since recording and unlocked dwarves. It is a game style I enjoy. I play a lot of auto battle style card based games, so I did enjoy this game a lot. There's individual unit upgrades as well, which is kind of interesting, where you gain tokens for a given race. So like I had a bunch of orc tokens, and then when I spent 10 of them, it picked a random one to upgrade, and so that orc got better. You also upgrade your units as you level your innkeeper, and so my innkeeper like buffed all my 1-cost orcs. If you haven't played this style of game before, you basically buy units for 3 coins and you can sell them back for 1 coin, and you can upgrade your shop, and the cost for upgrading your shop goes down by a coin each round, so it gets cheaper as the rounds go on. And you're just trying to build the best team that you can. If you get 3 of a given unit, they combine to make a gold unit in this game, and then you also get a extra card that gives you a random minion from 1 tier higher than the one that you just made. So it's it's very similar to Hearthstone Battlegrounds, but it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a good amount. Once you've completed a run, you can set up your like board from your prior run as like your defense, and you earn passive gold for 24 hours while it wins battles. So the way this game works is it's asynchronous, so you're not playing against 8 or 12 other live people. It's taking 11 other runs that other people have done in the past and pitting them against your live run. And so there is a little bit of your run that you complete will get seeded into other people's playthroughs, and as it gets wins in those playthroughs, you'll gain gold. So it's a nice little passive mechanic for gaining money. But yeah, it was a fun auto battle game. I enjoyed it a decent amount. Project Hailstorm is a short story-based game about visiting an abandoned worksite in the Antarctic. The visuals in this game are very good. I feel like overall it was worth the 10-minute playthrough. It's not a very long game. It's mostly just walking around. There is a little bit of pick up the thing and put it, in the slot that it's required to go in. But for the most part, it's just kind of walking through. There's some, not jump scares, but there's some drama in the game. And yeah, it's pretty short. The graphics are really good. So it's worth kind of just taking a walk in the world that they've created here. In PEXIT 8, you are trying to escape from a hallway. And the way that you escape from this hallway is by running through it and noticing any anomalies. And if there's an anomaly, you go through the pen door, and if there's not an anomaly, then you would go through the no pen door. And so you kind of walk through, carefully looking around. Hey, did this change? What was that before? Was this always here? And then picking your door. And if you're correct, the number at the entrance increments, so you know that you got it correct. And you need to get up to 8 and then have no anomaly when you're on level 8 to exit the game. It took me a while. I couldn't stop. I played this game until I beat it. I needed to beat it, and I just kept playing it. And some of the anomalies were crazy and very apparent, like, a stampede of penguins, or there's a jump scare through a door. There's just like random things that happen. And sometimes it's like, hey, this little tiny thing turned into a penguin. And you're like, well, okay, I guess I didn't see that though. And so you pick wrong, you go back to 0, you scream in agony, you go again. It's fun, it's infuriating, it's worth playing through. Let's Play Jigsaw Puzzles is what it says it is. It's a high customization jigsaw puzzle game where you can set the shape, you can set the count, and there are a decent amount of puzzles that you can start with, but there's also additional packs for purchase. If you're enjoying this game and want to show support, you can buy additional puzzles. I completed a puzzle that was, I think I did like 50 pieces or 100 pieces. I didn't do anything too crazy. You can set it to rotate mode or default everything in the correct orientation, and I did correct orientation for the sake of time, so that's another thing that you can modify to make it a little more difficult. It surprised me the number of piece types there were. There were like hexes and animals and just all these weird like cutout shapes you can get. I just did traditional puzzle shapes. And yeah, it's, if you like jigsaw puzzles and you want a way to spend some time relatively relaxing, just, working your way through it, this is definitely a game that you can sit down with and complete a puzzle, in a decent amount of time, depending on how big you make it, of course. Aria Skies is a fighting game that requires a controller to play. I played through their arcade mode. I feel like the foundations for this game were really good. The maps have hazards that show up that you can kind of play into or knock your enemy into or make sure you're avoiding at the very least. There's a decent variety of attacks. I played as the witch character who had some ranged abilities, which gave me a little bit of an edge because fighting games aren't really something I'm good at. So I was like, if I can give myself a little bit of an edge, I should be able to at least make a decent run at this. I lost in the last battle because you have to face like 4 characters. And so you have to, be able to survive the onslaught from all 4 of those characters, and I just wasn't able to do so. But I was able to get to the final boss, which I'll consider a win for me. But yeah, there's a decent amount of characters that you can try out in this game. It is free movement, so it's flying. You can like move up or down. There's no jumping. It's just kind of floating around through the arena, so there's a little bit more flexibility to dodge those arena hazards that occur. So yeah, it was a good fighting game. Not too crazy in terms of difficulty to just pick up and run with. There were a good amount of buttons to use, which is nice in a fighting game because you want to be able to have that flexibility to switch between normal attacks and special attacks and super special attacks and ultra special attacks and whatever else there may be available. Girls Frontline 2 EXILIUM is an XCOM style gameplay game. The tutorial was very long. I played for almost an hour and I still feel like I'm being spoon-fed. how to play through things. The cutscenes in this game are really high quality graphics. The game takes a decent amount of space, so I think it was like 40 gigs. Some of the cosmetic skins are a little bit not adult, but like on the skimpy side, so it's something to consider if you're looking to play this with a kid. I maybe wouldn't. The default skin seemed fine though, so it wasn't like it was a by default adult only game, so it was, pretty good in terms of the gameplay. I felt like the battles were a little short, but again, I don't know how much of that is just because they're hand-holding through the tutorial, and if those battles will get any more difficult as you go through the game. I got to the point where I unlocked a third character, so that gives you a little more flexibility in battle. So this is a game that maybe I would play again. I do like XCOM style, command your units around the battlefield. We had a couple of those early on in this series that I enjoyed. So the gameplay I like. It's just whether or not it'll have enough substance and difficulty, as I progress through to hold me is really what's I'm not sure about yet. Fit Right In is a game where you try to strike a pose to fit through a wall that is coming at you. So you can see, as it's approaching, what pose you need to make. There's also the ability to make your character smaller or larger, and so you might need to get bigger to fit through the hole or smaller to fit through the hole. There were definitely some shapes that by default when seeing them I wasn't sure what shape I needed to place myself in and so I was like scrambling to find something that would fit in the gap that was coming at me. There's also some power-ups that will come towards you, and so there's like a hammer that breaks a wall and something that I don't know, makes you move faster maybe. I don't remember. There's a bunch of different things that can happen based on those power-ups. There's also mystery boxes, so you don't know what power-up you're going to get. And yeah, you just try to see how long you can stay on the platform without one of the walls knocking you off. I wasn't very good at this game. It was challenging to get the timing down on how to get to the right position and the right size and the right location. And so it was definitely a more difficult game, but it's a cool concept. I think it's well executed. It's just more challenging than I was able to master for sure. Stop and Breathe is a very interesting platformer. It's a panic attack puzzle platformer where doing proper breathing can calm you down to help see your way through a puzzle. This is another game that requires a controller because you use the triggers to breathe effectively. But once you breathe in and then out after holding, then you can calm down and you'll see things that you didn't see before, right? All of those dark, panicky, overwhelmed sections of the map clarify, and you can see the path forward to complete the room that you're in. I thought this concept is really cool and well executed. I felt like it played into its theme very well. Breathing felt like it took a while, but it was meant to, right? You're supposed to have to take a second, to, I think it's 5 in, hold for 3, out 4, or something like that. So like there's, every time you see a breathing platform, you got 12 seconds you got to do stuff for. So it was good. I enjoyed this game a lot. I think that the concept was really cool and interesting, and I'm excited to see if the developer comes up with anything else, in a similar vein. Project Gravity is a Portal-esque game where you can manipulate gravity for yourself and other objects. So you can shift gravity and then activate it to move yourself to face a certain direction or walk on a wall or a ceiling, or you can select a direct gravitational direction and then click to shoot an object and make that object shift its gravitational pull in that direction. The puzzle design for this game was pretty good. I feel like the flow felt like they gave you, enough with each additional challenge to give you something new to face without inundating you with new items to try to figure out. Some of the designs of the puzzles were pretty interesting in terms of figuring out, oh, I have 6 buttons I have to press and I only have 3 boxes. How can I make that work? Or something like that. Which was, I thought interesting and brought a lot to the puzzle portion of the game. I made it through, 8 puzzles or so. and felt like, it was good flow for especially, a free-to-play game that you can just pick up and run with. It was a good, time to play through and solve all the puzzles for. Apocalypse Island is a good start to a zombie survival game. You can collect wood, you can find loot when you find locations. I do feel like locations are kind of sparse and there's nothing guiding you to them, so they can be difficult to find. But when you find a location, there's a lot of things that you can search. There's like trash cans and cabinets and the refrigerator, and you can loot all of those things. So there's a lot of loot to be found once you find a location. Just finding them can be a little difficult. This game is in early access, so I think that, as they add more things in the building and crafting realm, that will increase the number of things you can do. I can see this game, gaining a little more of a following as they build out what that looks like for crafting, and can you, build a base or put up defenses if you find a house and those kinds of things. I think will be very interesting as it grows. I did just walk around and hit zombies with an axe for 20 minutes, and it was good. It was confusing a little bit as to why some zombies would go down in like 2 hits and other zombies would go down in like 15 hits. I don't know if there's like level scaling across the different areas or what drives that, but there was definitely times where I was like, man, I've hit this guy like 100 times. Why won't he die? And then like I would turn around and hit someone else and they would just die immediately. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here. But again, it's in early access, so some of those things may be still in the works. But overall, it's a good entry as a starter to a zombie survival game. 100 Romantic Cats is a Valentine's themed hidden object game where you need to find 100 cats. I assume this was a sequel to a game we had earlier in this series that had a similar premise of find 100 cats in this picture, but I looked it up and it isn't. It's by a completely different developer. So it's interesting that that theme kind of came up out of 2 places. I found 99 of them, so I almost got 100. I was right there. I probably spent an extra 10 minutes trying to find the 100th, and then I was like, I got most of them. So, it's, a hidden object game. If you want to try to find some cats and get 100 Steam achievements for your trouble, then check this one out. In No Throwing, you are a robot who is attempting to defend chickens from falling debris. As you block things from falling, you grow in anger, size. You'll get bigger, and it makes it easier to block things. It also makes it easier to defend 3 chickens than 100 or 50, however many you start with. So when I first started, I didn't really know what I was doing. There isn't any tutorial of sorts, so it's just like, hey, go, and then just chickens exploding everywhere and me running around like, what is happening? How do I stop this? And eventually figuring out that my big dumb head could block things that were coming towards the ground and prevent them from impacting and killing all of the chickens around me. So once I figured that out and I had less chickens to protect, I was able to last a decent amount of time just protecting my 3 chickens that I was able to keep alive for the majority of my playthrough. And then eventually I missed one and the chicken got toasted. But yeah, it's a neat little game where you run around and block stuff from falling. I think this was also controller required. I don't remember using keyboard. I'm pretty sure it was with a controller, so something to consider if you're going to try this one out. Alpha League HD is an auto battler where you play as a single hero and you get cards to upgrade yourself. It's a lot to consume. I did okay on my first playthrough. I think I came in like 3rd, but I needed to be more focused in like a given discipline. I was too diverse and I couldn't keep up with the people who came in 1st and 2nd, who one of them was like full frost. Like whenever I had to face him, I would attack like twice because my character was so frozen, like he just couldn't attack. And then the other one, I don't know what build he went, but he smoked me too. He had this thing that like did a ton of damage at the start of the round, so I was like already at a massive deficit, and so it was hard for me to climb back from that deficit. Like I said, it's a lot to consume. There's a ton of different abilities that you can apply to your character. There's also like super abilities that you unlock at different level tiers that affect gameplay and your ability to succeed. Sometimes, most of mine, I went for additional health because I had a buff that like did something based on my max health. And then like I got a buff that made me gigantic. I don't know if it actually helped. I mean, it looked cool because I was just massive, but I don't know if it made me better in battle or not. So those types of things are just things that as you play and learn, you can improve on. But I think the core concept of this game is fun. I think it's got a lot going for it. So it's definitely worth checking out if auto battler style games are things you enjoy. Cubey Quarry is a clicker game where you mine ores and convert them to coins to buy various upgrades. Leveling increases your rarity odds on veins, so you can get more coins per vein you destroy. Uniquely, this game has multiplayer, so if you have 2 people in a game at once, you can go into a portal, and there's like a timed mining zone according to the game. I didn't have someone with me, so I wasn't allowed to use the portal, but I think that's kind of neat to have a clicker game with multiplayer. It's something I haven't really seen before. There's a smelter that you can put your ores in and get immediate gold, and then there's a grinder where you can put your ore in, and in 15 seconds it'll give you gold. By default, the smelter gives you 1 coin, the grinder gives you 2, so you wait 15 seconds to double your value out of a given ore, or you can just slam it all into the smelter depending on how quickly you need your money. As you upgrade them, that value becomes more. So by the end, I think my grinder gave me 8 coins and my smelter was giving me 3 coins. So there was definitely more value to putting my ore in the grinder and waiting for the 15 seconds than just slamming it into the smelter for 3 coins. I mean, the core loop of this game was pretty good. You had to click your drill to keep it running, but then it just, on a timed basis, will give you a new vein that you can destroy. I also upgraded my vein respawn times so that I could get them quicker to help me get coins faster. And the loop of this clicker is pretty good. I feel like it's pretty well executed, and if you like clicker games, this may be the one that you would enjoy. Aria Skies is a 2D flying bullet hell style game. After launching the game, I had to hit enter in the console to get it to actually launch. Like, it opened a console with some commands and I had to hit enter for it to actually load the game in. I felt like combat in this game is pretty difficult because you can only fire vertically. But often things are spawning behind you, so you had to like wait for them to fly in front of you to kill them. Once you beat the first boss, you earn the ability to fire behind you as well, so in some ways I feel like it might get easier as you progress because you have more flexibility in how you attack. I was able to beat the first boss. I died soon after that, and then I could not beat the first boss again. I kept dying before I got to him, so it is a difficult game. There's a lot of bullets flying around to dodge. I feel like sometimes with these types of games, I get too focused on combat and not enough on dodging and taking my time to ensure that I'm not dying before trying to kill the other things that are in the map with me. So I think, as long as you're focusing on dodging all the bullets, you should be able to play through this okay. You just have to not be, too battle hungry and just tanking damage so that you can destroy things. Last Spirit Origin is a top-down shooter where you have to kill a certain number of enemies within a map to unlock a portal. I was able to get that far. I killed, I think it was like 138 enemies to unlock the portal. And I was running around trying to find the portal, and I found this big circle. And I was like, sweet, and I activated it, and I don't know if that was the portal, because it felt more like a world event, because I had to defend it for a certain amount of time, and that amount of time was like 7 minutes or something. And I ended up dying, trying to stay in that circle for 7 minutes, which I might have been able to leave it and come back, I don't know, but I kept like just getting caught in the middle with all these bullets. Combat in this game is crisp. It felt easy to maneuver around. Most attacks give you an indication, so you know that you're about to get attacked. It'll either give you like a tracer for where they're going to shoot, or they're projectiles that are traveling towards you, so you have time to dodge them. There's also like some hounds that will try to just run up and bite you. So Yeah, I thought this game was a decent amount of fun. It's pretty chaotic at times, but that's kind of what you want from these style of games is just a bunch of chaos and then being able to hit your big attack for a ton of explosions and earning a bunch of gold. There's also stuff around the map you can pick up. I didn't really have time to read what they did when I collected them. It was like, you have wine. I was like, great. And I just kept running along. So that's something that, if I were to play this again, I might dig in more to see how those affect gameplay and what those different items that I acquire do. Chlorofell is another top-down shooter that has a reload mechanic and different ammo types. I didn't notice a huge difference in the early levels between normal bullets and the custom ammo that you can collect. I'm sure it matters more later in the game. I was probably 3 levels into the game when I ran into a room that I just couldn't beat. I was just swarmed with enemies, and you can only get hit twice. I have no idea how I'm supposed to get through that room with 100+ flying things in it. There might be like a dodge that I don't know about, or some sort of trick to like just get hit once and like no clip my way through everything out the door. Maybe, I don't know, but I tried it about 10 times and I was like, okay, well, we gave it a run. But I was able to play through the first couple levels. I feel like the gameplay overall was pretty smooth. The reload mechanic's cool, where you have to, if you time it right, you get kind of a bonus. So if you're paying attention, you can kind of hit that reload on the upswing, and it'll give you kind of a buff into your next round. And I think if you do it a couple times in a row, you shoot faster, so that's nice. So getting those reloads timed correctly goes a long way in the success of the game. CRAZLIPSE is a zombie game. You don't have to reload in this one, so you can just fire forever. The starting wave, I feel like, was pretty good. Like, there was a decent amount of zombies. I got hit a couple times. With no reload, I was able to eventually get it under control. I think I just got blindsided from one side when I was focusing on the other. But I was able to clear out the wave pretty effectively. After that, I killed every zombie on the map that I could find. And then another wave never started, and I stood around for like 3 minutes and walked around and like, here we go, this is a game. So I don't know if something got glitched on my playthrough and the wave didn't spawn for some reason, but for my playthrough there was just one wave. I think the zombie designs were pretty cool. I don't know, like I said, I would probably put a reload mechanic just to make it a little more difficult, because you can just spam that rifle and just mow through zombies, which might be fine if there's more zombies, right? If it hits you with 250 zombies and you're able to shoot through them that quickly, that's still, you have to be hitting them to survive, and so I think that's fine. It's just finding the balance of either slowing down how often you can shoot or increasing the amount of stuff you have to fight. Somewhere in there, I think, is where it would shine a little better. When it comes to games that I did not play this week, there were a few visual novels, and then there was one game that required you to play multiplayer locally, which I would have had to have someone else here with 2 controllers, so it wasn't really feasible. The first visual novel was Asset Flip Attorney. This is described as: Asset Flip Attorney is a murder mystery satire visual novel. Solve crimes in a world where everyone has gone insane and everything feels like a fever dream. Interrogate witnesses, hunt for clues, and take down the criminal organization that threatens to destroy reality. The Seabed's Shining Star is described as: Under the hazy moon, a shrine maiden meets a star. A short visual novel of a 2-person conversation. Cup ramen recommended. Carelesser Are Troublemakers is described as a feature-length, choice-based, depressive game in which the protagonist's ending changes depending on the choices made by you, the protagonist's auditory hallucination. I will say this game has a myriad of content warnings, so make sure you give those a read-through before deciding to play. And finally, What the Chuck is a game described as jump, dodge, and chuck your way through a variety of battlefields on this local platforming multiplayer game. Play with 2 to 4 players in a chaotic and cartoony free-for-all. Prove yourself as the ultimate woodchuck warrior and crush your friend's dream of achieving gold. So if you have some local friends, want to do some couch-style battling, then this is a game you can try out. So there you have it. That's everything that was released in the past week on Steam that was free to play. As always, I appreciate everyone who tunes in and giving me feedback on ways to improve and things I can be doing. So I appreciate that. As I stated in the intro, we'll have the spotlight this Thursday, so I'll get the voting out for that. So make sure you vote on what game you want to see me playing, and we'll see you Thursday night.